Hey there, lovely listeners. Welcome back to Learning English Studio, your friendly space for mastering English one conversation at a time. I'm Amelia, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you join us today.
Hi, Amelia, and hello to everyone tuning in. It's James here, and I'm excited for our chat today.
Hi, James. It's always such a pleasure having you with us. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing wonderfully, thank you. I can see you're practically glowing with excitement today. What's got you so cheerful?
Well spotted. I'm just genuinely excited about our topic today because it's something every English learner needs to master. How to agree and disagree naturally in English conversations. It's such a crucial skill, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things that can make or break a conversation. Knowing how to express agreement or disagreement politely is like having a superpower in English.
Exactly. Before we dive in, though, I'd like to ask our wonderful listeners to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and please share our podcast with your friends who are learning English too. Your support helps us keep creating content that makes learning English enjoyable and accessible. All right, James, are you ready to explore the art of agreeing and disagreeing in English?
More than ready. Let's jump right in.
Perfect. So let's start with the basics. When it comes to agreeing in English, there are so many ways to do it, right? We have simple agreements, strong agreements, partial agreements. The list goes on.
That's so true. And what's interesting is how the choice of words can show the level of enthusiasm or certainty in someone's agreement. For instance, a simple "I agree" is quite different from "I couldn't agree more."
Oh, absolutely. And I think learners often struggle with knowing which expressions to use in different situations. Sometimes they might come across as too formal or too casual without realizing it.
That's such a good point. I remember when I was learning, I once used "I concur" in a casual conversation with friends, and they looked at me like I was from another planet.
Oh my goodness, I can just imagine that. I concur does sound a bit like something you'd hear in a courtroom rather than at a coffee shop with friends.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to understand the different levels of formality in English expressions for agreement and disagreement.
So true. Let's start with some common, everyday ways to agree that would work in most casual situations. Things like, "I think so too," "That's true," or "You're right about that."
Yes, those are perfect, and we can make them even more natural by adding little expressions like, "Yeah, I think so too," or "Oh, that's so true." These little additions make the conversation flow much better.
Oh, I love that you mentioned those little additions. They really do make a difference. And what about stronger agreements, when you really, really agree with someone?
For stronger agreements, we have expressions like "I completely agree," "Absolutely," "You're absolutely right," or my favorite, "I couldn't agree more."
I couldn't agree more is such a great one. It's so expressive and really shows enthusiasm. I think it's one of those phrases that when learners master it, they feel like they've really leveled up in their English.
Definitely. And there's also "That's exactly how I see it," or "You've hit the nail on the head." These are more idiomatic, but so natural once you get the hang of them.
Oh, "hit the nail on the head" is a fantastic idiom. It really paints a picture, doesn't it? Like someone precisely identifying the core of an issue.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of English expressions. They often have these wonderful visual elements that make them memorable.
So true. Now, what about partial agreement? Because sometimes we don't completely agree with someone, but we don't want to completely disagree either. That's a tricky area for many learners.
Oh, absolutely. Partial agreement is such an important skill. It's about finding that middle ground where you can acknowledge the other person's point while still expressing your own perspective.
Right, and it's so useful in maintaining good relationships, both personal and professional. No one likes to be told they're completely wrong all the time.
Exactly. Some great expressions for partial agreement include "I see your point, but," or "That's partly true, however," or "I agree with you to some extent, but."
Those are perfect examples. And I think the "but" or "however" is crucial here because it signals that you're about to introduce your differing perspective.
That's so true. And there are softer ways to do it too, like, I understand where you're coming from, but have you considered, which is really gentle and respectful.
Oh, I love that one. I understand where you're coming from shows empathy and acknowledges the other person's perspective before you introduce your own. It's such a diplomatic way to partially disagree.
Absolutely, and it's perfect for situations where you want to maintain a good relationship while still expressing your own opinion.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about disagreeing. This can be really challenging for English learners because they don't want to sound rude or confrontational.
Oh, definitely. Disagreeing in a second language can feel so risky. You're worried about choosing the wrong words and accidentally offending someone.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to learn the right phrases and intonation. The way you say something can be just as important as what you say.
That's so true. For gentler disagreements, we have expressions like, I'm not sure I agree with that, or I see it differently, or I have a different perspective on this.
Those are great, and I think adding I'm afraid can soften it even more, like I'm afraid I don't quite agree, or I'm afraid I see it differently.
Oh, that's a wonderful tip. The I'm afraid really adds a layer of politeness and shows that you're not trying to be difficult.
Exactly. And what about stronger disagreements, when you really need to stand your ground but still want to be respectful?
For stronger disagreements, you could say, I completely disagree, or I have to say I don't agree with that at all, or I'm sorry, but I can't agree with you on this.
Those are good, but I think it's important to add something like, I respect your opinion, but, to show that you're not dismissing the person entirely.
Oh, that's such an important point. It's all about disagreeing with the idea, not with the person. I respect your opinion, but I have to disagree is much better than just you're wrong.
Exactly. And it's so much more likely to lead to a productive conversation rather than an argument.
That's so true. And I think it's helpful for learners to remember that disagreement isn't necessarily negative. It can lead to deeper understanding and better solutions when handled respectfully.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the best ideas come from healthy disagreement and debate. It's how we grow and learn.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to master these skills in English. It opens up so many opportunities for meaningful conversations.
So true. Now, I'm curious, James, have you ever had a situation where you had to disagree in English and felt nervous about it?
Oh, definitely. I remember this one time in a university class where I completely disagreed with my professor's interpretation of a text. I was so nervous to speak up.
Oh, I can just imagine. How did you handle it?
Well, I took a deep breath and said something like, Professor, I really respect your expertise, but I've been thinking about this passage from a different angle. Would it be okay if I shared my perspective?
Oh, that's such a perfect way to approach it. Respectful, polite, and opening the door for discussion rather than confrontation.
Thank you. And thankfully, my professor was really open to it. We ended up having a fascinating discussion that helped the whole class see the text in a new light.
That's such a wonderful story. It really shows how disagreement, when handled well, can lead to deeper understanding for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And it was a great confidence booster for me, too. It showed me that I could express disagreement respectfully and effectively in English.
That's so inspiring. I think our listeners will appreciate hearing that experience. It shows that with the right approach, disagreeing doesn't have to be scary.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Like any skill in language learning, it just takes time and practice.
So true. And I think it's helpful for learners to start with low-stakes situations, maybe with friends or language partners, before moving on to more formal or high-pressure situations.
Oh, that's such great advice. Building confidence gradually is key, and friends are usually more forgiving if you don't phrase things perfectly.
Exactly. And they can give you feedback on how you came across, which is so valuable for improvement.
That's so true. Feedback is gold when you're learning a language. It helps you fine-tune your expressions and understand the nuances better.
Speaking of nuances, I think it's worth mentioning that cultural differences can play a role in how agreement and disagreement are expressed in English.
Oh, absolutely. What's considered polite in one culture might be seen as too direct or too indirect in another. It's such an important aspect of communication.
Definitely. For example, in some cultures, direct disagreement is seen as rude, while in others it's considered honest and straightforward. English speakers often fall somewhere in the middle, valuing both honesty and politeness.
That's such a good point, and I think it's helpful for learners to observe how native speakers express agreement and disagreement in different contexts: movies, TV shows, real conversations, etc.
Oh, absolutely. Observation is such a powerful learning tool, and paying attention to body language and tone of voice can give you so many clues about how to interpret what's being said.
Exactly. A simple "I see" can mean completely different things depending on the tone and body language that accompany it.
So true. And that's why it's so important to practice not just the words, but the delivery too. The intonation, the facial expressions, the gestures.
Absolutely. Communication is so much more than just words, and the more you practice the whole package, the more natural and confident you'll become.
Now, I'm curious, James, do you have any favorite expressions for agreeing or disagreeing that you find particularly useful or interesting?
That's a great question. For agreeing, I've always liked "you've got a point there." It feels collaborative and acknowledges the other person's contribution to the conversation.
Oh, that's a lovely one. It really does have that collaborative feel to it. And for disagreeing?
For disagreeing, I think "I hear what you're saying, but" is really useful. It shows you're listening and considering their perspective before introducing your own.
Oh, that's such a good one. It's respectful and opens the door for constructive dialogue rather than just shutting down the conversation.
Exactly. And I think that's the key. We want to keep the conversation going and maintain good relationships even when we don't see eye to eye.
So true. And it's worth remembering that it's okay to disagree. Having different perspectives is what makes conversations interesting and helps us all learn and grow.
Absolutely. And the more comfortable you become with expressing disagreement respectfully in English, the more confident you'll feel in all kinds of conversations.
That's so true. And I think it's helpful for learners to remember that native speakers also find these conversations challenging sometimes. It's not just a language learning issue.
Oh, that's such an important point. Even native speakers sometimes struggle with finding the right words to disagree without causing offense. It's a universal communication challenge.
Exactly. So learners shouldn't be too hard on themselves if they don't get it right every time. It's a skill that everyone continues to develop throughout their lives.
That's so true, and every conversation is an opportunity to practice and improve. Even the mistakes are valuable learning experiences.
Absolutely. And I think it's helpful to reflect on conversations afterward. What went well? What could be improved next time? That self-reflection is so valuable for growth.
That's such a great tip, and maybe even keeping a little journal of expressions that worked well or situations that felt challenging can be really helpful for tracking progress.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. A conversation journal could really help solidify learning and give learners confidence when they look back and see how far they've come.
Exactly, and it's those little consistent efforts that really add up over time to make a big difference in language proficiency.
So true. Now, I'm wondering if we could talk a bit about some common mistakes learners make when expressing agreement or disagreement in English.
That's a great topic. I think one common mistake is using expressions that are too formal in casual situations, like we talked about earlier with "I concur."
Absolutely. And the opposite is true too. Using overly casual expressions in formal situations can come across as unprofessional.
That's so true. And I think another common mistake is being too direct when disagreeing, which can sound rude in English, even if that's not the intention.
Oh, definitely. English speakers often use a lot of softening language when disagreeing. Things like "I'm afraid," "I'm sorry but," or "I might be wrong but."
Exactly. And these softeners can feel unnecessary to learners from cultures where direct communication is valued, but they're so important for maintaining relationships in English-speaking contexts.
That's such an important point. And I think another challenge is knowing when to simply listen and when to speak up. Sometimes the most skillful response is to just acknowledge someone's point without immediately agreeing or disagreeing right away.
Oh, that's such a wise observation.
Expressions like, "That's an interesting perspective," or "I hadn't thought of it that way before," can be really useful in those situations.
Absolutely. They show you're engaged and considering what the other person is saying without necessarily committing to agreement or disagreement right away.
Exactly. And sometimes just giving yourself a moment to think with something like, that's something to consider, can be really helpful before responding.
That's so true. And I think it's worth mentioning that it's okay to take a moment to think before responding, especially in a second language. It shows you're taking the conversation seriously.
Absolutely. And native speakers do it all the time too. Those little pauses for thought are completely natural in conversation.
So true. Now, I'm curious, James, do you have any final tips or words of encouragement for our listeners who are working on mastering agreement and disagreement in English?
I think my biggest tip would be to start small and build confidence gradually. Maybe practice with a friend or language partner in a low-pressure situation first.
That's such great advice. And I would add to that, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every conversation is a learning opportunity, and native speakers make mistakes too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's helpful to remember that the goal isn't to be perfect, but to communicate effectively and respectfully. That's what really matters.
So true. And I think it's encouraging for learners to know that even small improvements in this area can make a big difference in how confidently they can express themselves in English.
Absolutely. And the more you practice, the more natural it will become. Like any skill, it just takes time and consistent effort.
That's so true. Well, James, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I feel like our listeners are going to walk away with so many practical tips and insights.
Thank you, Amelia. It's been a pleasure discussing this topic with you. I hope our listeners find it helpful for their English learning journey.
I'm sure they will. And before we wrap up, I'd like to encourage our listeners to practice what they've learned today. Maybe try using 1 or 2 new expressions for agreement or disagreement in your next English conversation.
That's a great idea. And remember, it's okay if it feels a bit awkward at first. That's completely normal when you're trying out new language patterns.
Exactly. And I'd also love to hear from our listeners. Do you have a favorite expression for agreeing or disagreeing in English? Or maybe a story about a time you had to disagree in English and how it went?
Oh, that would be so interesting to hear. Everyone's experiences are so valuable, and we can all learn from each other.
Absolutely. So please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We read every comment and love hearing from our learning community.
And if you found this episode helpful, please don't forget to subscribe to Learning English Studio and share it with your friends who are learning English too. Your support helps us continue creating content that makes learning English enjoyable and accessible.
That's so true. And we'd also love it if you'd rate our podcast. It really helps new listeners discover us. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but we'll be back next week with another helpful episode to support your English learning journey.
Until then, keep practicing, keep learning, and remember that every conversation is an opportunity to grow. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Amelia from Learning English Studio, signing off. Happy learning, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Before we go, I just want to add one more thing for you all today. We've got a little interactive segment for you all. We'd love to know which of these situations you find most challenging when speaking English. Disagreeing with someone older or in a position of authority? Disagreeing with friends in a casual setting? Partially agreeing when you see both sides of an argument? Let us know in the comments which one you find trickiest and why. We'll be reading your responses and might even address some common concerns in future episodes. Can't wait to hear from you all.